Hey, my name is Crunk Chocolate and welcome to End of Season Report, part of Shades of Blue content season. We're streaming live on FanFest, and shout out to everybody on our Tronies, and for whenever this eventually gets on YouTube, please like, hit that thumbs up, love. It is the off season, which means we can all relax a little on our tribalism. So here I am asking some of my favorite people about clubs in the Premier League and in the Women's Super League. And today we talk about the Women's Super League. We dive in about the Crystal Palace women, the Sheagles. I am super excited because it's the first time having our guest on. I've had one of his co-hosts on already, so shout out to Eagle Eye View Podcast. Also, I feel like Crystal Palace, they're in the top of like clubs I've had the most like variation of guests on. Like naturally, there's like a lot you can find a lot of Arsenal and Chelsea and things like that, but where like so there are certain clubs where I have to not only, but like I find the people and I just kind of work with them because then it's like more work to find other people. But yeah, there's Rich. There's a few other people that I have on to talk with Crystal Palace. So good people, a nice variation of people. I actually have a good friend who lives near me. He's a Crystal Palace fan, so I like chatting with him every now and then. And it's going to be super exciting. Shady Gang, I've done enough chatting. Let's just get to it. Welcome him on. Phil, how are you? How are things?
I'm good, thank you, and thanks so much for having me on your show. It's funny actually talking about US Palace fans. There's quite a few actually. There's a supporters group that has got. I think they're now in 50 states. We've got groups in 50 states just about. So and they meet up mainly obviously to support the men's team, and they meet up very early in the morning, especially in San Francisco. Over on the West Coast, very early in the morning to watch games together live. So I think I don't know if it's to do with the eagle or the red, white, and blue or whatever, but it's definitely something that's hit the United States over the last few years. And we have got some good supporters, and I know quite a few myself who are American, who come over for games. So it's great to be here. Thanks very much for having me. Probably quite a difficult discussion for me because we got relegated, the women's team. But yeah, I mean, it's been a very challenging season for us, really, last season. But we can talk about that and some of the issues that came up and why we struggled, and be happy to talk you through some of those things, really.
Yeah, of course. I very much want to hear all about the club. This is why I do things like this. Even with we cover Manchester City on our podcast, but we also have a WSL podcast. It's called The 12, where we have multiple people on and they talk about what's going on in the WSL and Women's Champions League and all those other things. We've been slowly branching out. We have like an Arsenal podcast, a Bundesliga podcast, things like that. But obviously, so one of our people on the pod, he actually was very much rooting for Crystal Palace all season. Like he was hoping for the best. Shout out to Trev. Like he basically was like, I'm the pod resident Crystal Palace fan, even though he's technically an Arsenal fan, but he was very much rooting for Crystal Palace. And it was very fun and interesting listening to his perspective when he was seeing in City. When we played Crystal Palace, I was able to see them for 2 games, but it's always better to have someone who's in those trenches, and I mean trenches for real, because like you said, unfortunately, you're relegated. And yeah, thank you for your time. The way that I'll explain how this episode goes, we call it end of season report, basically giving a report card of sorts. Each category, there's kits. We will talk about the home, away, and third. We have the manager, the squad, the supporters, and front office. For each, you will grade A through F, A being the best grade, F being the worst grade. You can use pluses or minuses. And early on in the series in summer, we had on an English fan, and they introduced me to the U. So if there's a category that you deem so harmful to the club this year, feel free to use the U. It honestly kind of took me. I was like, oh, let's go. I'm a big fan of spice. I'm a big fan of, giving it to somebody. So hey, if you feel it, drop it. Go for it. But first off, we'll start with the kits, and it's kind of tough. What do you do with a white kit, right? Or what do you, or guess what do you do with like the traditional styles of kits, Crystal Palace? I guess let's just go straight to you. What are your thoughts on the home kit, and
Yeah.
what's your grade?
Well, it's the kits. To me, it's quite an exciting time each year when the new kits are released, and they don't usually bring them all out together. They usually do it in stages. You get the home kit, then you get the second, and then the third. And there's great anticipation. I think some people think that there shouldn't be a new kit every year because it's going to be, it's just a way of generating money and taking money off supporters. But I actually think that it is important to have a new kit each year, and I think a lot of people look forward to it, and I also think it identified with that season as well. Obviously, the women's team, they had a new sponsor this year, but a company called 10. They're a Greek shipping company, so we have 10 across the front of our shirts for the women's team. So they were sponsored by them, and then the kits themselves. I mean, I'm a traditionalist, so we normally have red and blue stripes.
Yeah.
For a home kit, or usually a white kit, sometimes with a sash. You can see behind me there's one with two sashes. There's usually a white kit with a red and blue sash sometimes, although it's changed in recent years. Those are our sort of main kits that everyone knows Palace by. So this year we had red and blue stripes, but they weren't just plain red and blue stripes. And I'm a traditionalist. I like my stuff to be plain, simple. I think it looks better. But they had the eagle, the Palace eagle, actually incorporated into the stripes.
Yes.
And to me, it made it really messy. It made it, just have red and blue stripes. That's classic. That looks fantastic, So I didn't like the home kit for that reason. It had these eagles in it, and it was, to me, from a distance, it looked okay, but close up, it just looked too much going on for me. The second kit was a yellow kit called Eagle Yellow, and for the first time in our history, we just had the Eagle badge without the Crystal Palace and the name on it. It made it look to me like almost like a training shirt. It wasn't like a proper football shirt because it didn't actually have Crystal Palace FC on it. With Crystal Palace, with the actual Crystal Palace building, which is what we named. That's where the club started. So it just looked like a training shirt. It's a yellow one, and that also had the eagle incorporated in it. One big eagle.
Yes.
Yeah, the big eagle. And then the third kit, which is probably the one that I like the best, was a black with a red and blue stripe down the middle. But the red and blue stripe again had sort of the eagle incorporated in it, and again too messy for me. But lots of people liked it. I didn't particularly. I think the black kit was probably my favourite. Out of the three, but if I'm talking about an A to F for those kits, for me it'll be a D. I thought they were below standard, really. I think we deserve better kits than that, and I think that we've had so many kits that have almost been perfect, but there's always something. And if that red and blue stripes was just red and blue stripes, that to me would have been a perfect home kit. But having the eagle incorporated in it and everything, there's no need for it, And so, for me, it'll be a D. It'll be a D for kids.
So I guess I first liked how you talked about just the kids coming every year. There are certain clubs that they skip a year, or like one year they'll make a new home, the next they'll do a new away. Man City with their Puma deal, they always have like 5-6 kits a year. It's obviously an easy way to get more money into the club, but that only works if you're selling them. If you have an entire fan base that feels like you about a whole year, each kit that was made this year, you're not really a fan of it. It's too busy. It's too noisy. Then that's 3 sets of kits, which I agree. They seem very like create a kit type of vibes instead of just like they went too far with like the modern and the fun and the upbeat. I don't know if they were just aiming for younger fans with each kit.
Possibly.
Yeah, because usually with City, they naturally they do the blue, but lately with the blue, they've been trying to do it with a nod to the past. And then the away one is kind of like fun, trendy, fashionable. Like this was our away kit last year. And then the third is usually the like wild kit that the kids will like. And that's what I'm used to seeing. Looking at all of these Crystal Palace ones, it's like they took big swings with each one. Because the little eagle, when I first saw it, I was like, okay, this is cool. It's like some weird like pattern. And then I got close and I saw it was a bunch of tiny eagles that are not even like, it's not like one line is all up, the ones are all down. They're just kind of like all different. And yeah, like you said, it's too much going on. Like if they would have simplified it a little bit, I'm sure it would have came off like visually, aesthetically a little bit better, maybe.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think we haven't had red and blue stripes in a plain in a plain sort of format for a long time now. We've always had some sort of either a graffitied one or a zigzag one, or it's just all, and I think it's time. I mean, we haven't got the kits the next year out yet. They should be coming out shortly, but I'm hoping we just have simple red and blue stripes for once. I think the last time was when we last got to the cup final. The men got to the cup final in 2016 when it was red and blue. I think since then it's just been all different. We've had a big blue bit in the middle with red each side, a bit like the old PSG kit. And then it's just been a bit of, so I really hope that this year we just have simple, plain red and blue stripes, classic Palace, It's not asking much, I was at a Player of the Year years ago, and Steve Parish, the Palace chairman, said, there's only so much you can do with red and blue stripes. Well, yeah, maybe, but just keep it simple. You don't need to mess with something that it works and is known and is a brand almost. You don't need to mess with it. Just use it. The sponsor changes regularly. I mean, you don't need to change the kit that much really, because people still buy it because it's a new kit anyway, with a new sponsor and everything. So you don't need to change it that much, but they just seem to want to make it complicated when I don't think it needs to be. So it's definitely a D for me. I didn't like the kits really, any of them. The third one was okay. The third one brings it from an E to a D, because it was mainly black and it didn't have all the, only had the middle section with the red and blue in the middle. So I can put up with that a little bit, but the others, no, not for me really. And it's the first year I think I haven't bought any of the kits at all. I usually buy at least one shirt each year, but I didn't buy any of them this year. So that tells you what I thought of them, doesn't it really?
Yeah, it really does. And I am the complete opposite. I have the home, away, and third kit this year, which I don't really ever do, but I truly loved all of them. I did buy all of them on sale, so like it is what it is. Like I'm a big believer. Well, and the kits, everybody understands, especially with football and capitalism. It's just like everything. It just gets more and more expensive. If I'm gonna buy all three, then I gotta sell it to myself somehow. So that's what I do.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we can keep it moving to the manager. You had Comiskey, and then it looks like you switched to Leaf Smerud.
Yeah. Yes.
I guess. Let me know how the season went. How would you grade each manager, or you can just ignore the old and just focus on the now? You go at this however you deem fit.
Well, I think the first thing to say is that Laura Kaminsky, in the year that we got promoted the season before last, that was Laura Kaminsky's first managerial role as a first team manager coach. She's had roles as an assistant for Tottenham and for Charlton Athletic and Tottenham. And she's also been involved in the England setup as well. So she's a really well-known coach, Laura Kaminsky. But that was the first time she'd ever managed a team. She got us from, we won the league. We won the second division, the championship as it was. It's now called WSL2, as you probably know. But at the time, when we won the championship, that was Laura's first season managing a team. And it's a remarkable achievement. Because that division's a very, the championship's a really tough division. There's some big teams spending a lot of money, and we didn't spend hardly anything. In fact, the season we got promoted, our entire income from the whole club was £190 million, of which only 0.3% was spent on the women's team. That is a really small percentage of money invested in the women's team. So to get promoted, literally, without spending hardly any money, to get promoted just goes to show what an amazing job Laura did. And then from the point we got promoted, it all started to sort of go a little bit wrong, because the penultimate game of the season we got promoted, we won the league basically at Lewes, away at Lewes. And our top goal scorer, Elise Hughes, who's going to be in the Euros playing for Wales in a couple of weeks' time, she did her ACL. So she basically, the day we got promoted, essentially, we lost our top goal scorer. And she was out literally from almost the whole of last season. So that was a massive blow, because she's a really important player for us, natural goal scorer. And then from that point onwards, it just kept going more and more wrong, because what we needed last summer was because we've never been in the WSL before, none of our players really have got that experience, and we needed to bring in players who knew the league, who knew how to get results in the league, who could help those players that got us promoted and push them through, help them in that division stay up. We were never going to stay up if we weren't going to get experience, because the step up from the Championship to the WSL is huge. Much bigger than the men's championship to the Premier League, much bigger. And we only had to stay above one other team, because only the bottom team gets relegated, as you know, out of those 12. So we only had to better one team. So we needed to get enough experience in to just be good enough to finish second from bottom, just above the bottom place. That would have been a great season for us to then use as a springboard. Unfortunately, we just didn't. We didn't organise ourselves. We didn't get the players in. We didn't get the experience in. There were so many things that went wrong, and you could see it throughout the pre-season. For example, our pre-season results were dreadful. We lost to Charlton in a division below in a friendly. We lost to Bristol City in a division below in a friendly. We lost 3-0 to Utah Royals in a friendly, and we're not really in that game at all. And I know Utah are a decent team. They've got Ali Sentinel, and she looked amazing in that game, by the way, and scored against us. But there were so many things that were not going right, and we could see it. And one of the things the biggest problem, I think, was not only about the experience which we needed, we just didn't get, but I think when your top goal scorer gets injured with an ACL and is literally going to be out for 10 months. What we didn't do is all pre-season we didn't have a replacement, so we were playing games without any centre forward. We had no proper forward. We were playing wingers in the middle, midfielders in the middle, up front, and you can't prepare for a WSL season without having your forward integrating the way that you play. So it was literally a week before the season started that we brought in Katie Stengel from Gotham City. And we'd gone through the whole pre-season without a centre forward until Katie joined us. Now, she had a week before we played Tottenham in that first game, which is just ridiculous. But, we got promoted on the 28th of April, and we were playing Spurs in September, and it was only at the beginning of September that we brought in a centre forward. Now, how can you prepare for the top division in that way? It's shambolic. You couldn't even make it up. So that set us back so much, because our pre-season was a disaster. We didn't bring in the experience anyway. Katie was probably the most experienced and a great signing, I have to say. She was fantastic for us. I really hope she stays. I don't know if she will because we've gone down, but I really hope Katie Stengel stays because she's a fantastic footballer. I'm really, really impressed with her. But to bring her in literally a week before the first game away at Spurs, So, that's not the manager's fault. So we're talking about Laura Kaminsky basically getting us promoted and needing some support and help and getting players in. We never gave her the players. We never gave her the support to get through to prepare for that season. So we started away at Spurs, lost 4-0. Then we had Chelsea at home, lost 7-0. We literally, our pre-season was those first games because that was the first time we had our players together. It wasn't just Katie, we brought in some other players very late on as well. So literally the whole of pre-season was just a complete mess. We didn't have our squad, we weren't prepared, and we went into these games against top teams that have been in the WSL for years with no chance really because we just weren't prepared for it. You can't go into games like that against those top teams. So after 2 games, we've got a -11 goal difference, not scored a goal, and we've lost 2 out of 2. We were adrift at the bottom already after just 2, 4-0 and 7-0. And so, and it all comes down to the investment, not enough money to get the quality that we needed to help those players that did so well to get us promoted. And then Laura literally just been hung out to dry, I think. Yeah. So she did really well to turn things around because we had a little run of games where we won at Leicester, and then we managed to get a draw against Everton, a draw against Liverpool. We had a little run of games. We were really unlucky to lose to Man United 1-0. I mean, we didn't deserve to lose that. That was just a mistake. So Laura actually turned it around in really impressively, I thought, because as I say, she just didn't have the support that she needed to get us ready for that WSL season. So we managed to get some points on the board. It looked actually quite promising. Then we started to get some injuries. Squad wasn't sufficiently strong enough because we hadn't invested. So we had some key injuries throughout the season. For example, our captain, Amy Everett, got injured at Brighton and then missed the rest of the season. Milla Guile, who's a really top signing Danish international, was injured for a big chunk of the season, and she was a really big miss because she was playing really well when she got injured. I think she got injured on international duty for Denmark, which is just really unlucky as well. But ultimately, we just didn't. So Laura, I would say, given the circumstances, I would probably give her a C. She was definitely not lower than a C for her performance throughout the season, given what she had to start with. And she actually, the win at Leicester and the draw at Liverpool, where we drew 1-1 at Liverpool, we should have beaten them about 4-1. We missed so many chances. Showed how we can play, and she gave us, after losing the first 2 games, she gave us that confidence that allowed us to then get those results, because it could have been easy for everyone just to say, oh my God, 4-0 and 7-0, let's just give up now. But she didn't. She turned it around. She kept the belief going, gave them confidence, and we actually played some really good football in some of those games. The biggest problem that we had was that we didn't have enough strength at the back. So when we got injuries, we never had a right back all season, for example. We were playing different players at right back who were not really right backs, they were mainly midfielders. So we ended up conceding more than 20 goals more than the next team. We conceded 65 and scored 20 goals in the season, so a -45 goal difference is just horrific, really. And a lot of that's really because we didn't have enough cover for injuries. You're always going to get injuries in a WSL season, and I just think that we just didn't have enough cover, big quality cover, so we were playing players out of position. You can't do that in the WSL. You've almost got to have 2 quality players for every position, because you get found out, if you're not playing players in their right position and they're not a proper right back, for example, you're going to get found out eventually when they're out of position. And it's sometimes small margins that will cost you games, whereas sometimes you're just going to be beaten by Man City or Arsenal or Chelsea because they're better than you. But those games against the teams around us, we didn't have enough quality to, and we should have had, really. And so I'd give Laura a C, but the big problem was they basically got rid of Laura Kaminsky, brought in Leif Smerud, who hadn't managed a domestic team since about 2013. He's a big manager of the Norway women as an interim coach, and also the Norway men as an interim coach. On paper, he looked like, to manage a Norwegian national team, even on an interim basis, is pretty impressive. On paper, I think he probably looked quite good, but when it came down to it, he didn't know the league, he didn't know the players, he didn't get the best out of the players. And I'm afraid for Leaf, and I hate saying this, but he's an F because he never picked the right team. He never made the right substitutes. He never played, even when our top goal scorer came back from her injury. He never played her. And we were crying out behind the goal. The supporters were crying out to bring her on. We needed goals. She scored 16 goals in 21 games in the season we got promoted. She's a natural goal scorer, great centre forward, technically brilliant. Technically good enough for the WSL. So Leif Smerud comes in, doesn't play her, even though she's fit enough to come in, and she's in the Welsh squad for the Euro, so she's definitely fit enough now. Never played her. Right up to the end of the season, we were shouting, bring her on and stuff, and he was almost in spite, I think, that he just didn't want to do what it was just ridiculous. So anyway, I'm afraid it was a disastrous appointment. We got one win out of Leif Smerud, which was a 3-1 win against Aston Villa, which actually brought us level with Villa at the bottom of the table. That win was crucial. I think it either brought us level or 1 point behind. But after that, it just went. The next game we lost 4-0 or 3-0 to Everton. Didn't even turn up. Team was changed again with players out of position. Looked a complete mess. And from that point, it was so. Laura, I'm going to give a C because I don't think it was her fault, and she did turn things around after a terrible start. But Leif Smerud, I'm afraid, is an F. I thought it was a dreadful appointment. We needed someone who knew that league, who knew English football. We didn't need someone who had no connection with English football. I understood anything about that league or the players or anything. We needed someone who knew how to get results in that division, and I'm afraid he fell really badly short on that. So, yeah, sorry, I'm quite harsh on him, but it was dreadful.
Do not apologize. You feel the way that you feel, and that's what I want to hear. Yeah. So I assume he was let go, or he resigned.
Yeah. Yeah, apparently he resigned after we lost 7-1 at home to West Ham, which was another disastrous game for him. Apparently he'd made his decision then that he was going to go, but he basically told the players that he after the final whistle of the last game, we drew 2-2 with Leicester in the final home game, and I think he told them that, or maybe it was the last game of the season when we lost 5-2 to Man City. It might be in that one, but in one of those games he basically told the players, that's it, I'm leaving. But he had to go. There's no way we could have kept him. He was a disastrous appointment, and we went backwards. We actually looked worse than when Laura, at least we played some good football and we looked like we were in games. When he was the manager, we just looked all over the place. And we just didn't look like we were going to get anything from the first minute, really. It was just dreadful. It was just really, really poor, I thought. So, yeah, unfortunate, but, it's a bad appointment by the club, and the club have got to take responsibility for that, really.
Yeah, that final game of the season, after... I guess this is when I'm going to whine about Man City for a little bit. The season did not go great. A lot of injuries ourselves. And there was no point in playing this game, at all, from the City perspective, not anything against us. Our team was injured. I was very worried about Yui and Carolyn, and just Mary Fowler tore ACL a few games just before that. It was just can we get out of the season with minimal injuries? The whole Nick Cushing experiment was not going well. I just wanted it over with. And then for Crystal Palace to get ahead of us, oh my gosh, we do watch-alongs, and I was having a whole meltdown in front of this camera. It's just why are we even here? What are we even doing? So it was nice to see the comeback, and hear the players talk so like positively about being able to figure some things out and power through, because they kind of like, I don't want to say lacked the character, but they couldn't find the initiative to pull something out of themselves for really after January, from January to the rest of the season. And I know injuries to, we didn't have Bunny Shaw, we didn't have Lauren Hemp, we didn't have Alex Greenwood, we had inconsistencies in goalkeeping. Like there were just plenty of things that you could complain about, but that's every club. And when you're also a top club, there's supposed to be expectations. So that first like 45 first half of that match was incredibly stressful, because it was like, respectfully, I was like, they are relegation side. We should not be struggling against them. And it hurt my heart. And even when we pulled ahead and everything, I was just like, okay, like it's still, the season's over. Like it's good to end with a win, but it wasn't a beautiful win. It's still so many like negatives about the squad. I just wanted to get Nick Cushing away from me and move on. Like truly, it was a lot.
Well, that game, yeah, you're right. I mean, it was a really, it certainly was a game of two halves, wasn't it? But that game summed up Palace's season in a way, because there were times where we did play well and create chances throughout the season, even against some of the top teams. And that first half, we scored 2 goals. Well, I think we were winning 2-1 at half time. And then it didn't take long in the second half for it all to change. And that's been our season, that we've just not been able to defensively hold out long enough under any pressure. And to be honest, it could have been 10 in the end, because I think our goalkeeper made a couple of amazing saves. It was just literally so one-sided the second half. And it's again, as our legs get tired, it's all about the lack of investment in the squads, and the squad's not strong enough. We haven't got enough players to come on. We haven't been able to cover injuries. There's been games this season where we've had 4 outfield players on the bench, where you can have 9. We've had 4 players on the bench because we haven't got anyone else. It's just embarrassing, It's just, the club needs to look at itself and think, if you're going to get promoted to the top division in English women's football, and you're not going to be investing, what's the point of even being there? Because it's just embarrassing, really. And that game summed up the whole season in a way. But I mean, if you take Mary Fowler, Alex Greenwood, Bunny Shaw, and Lauren Hemp out of any team in the world, they are not going to be the same team. You had massive injuries as well to key players. I mean, Bunny Shaw for me is the best centre forward in the world. I think she's amazing. I mean, I really do think she's just the best. I mean, I think Bradley is a better player in the world up in that position. So you take those players out, of course you're going to. I mean, I was really disappointed that Lauren Hemp came back for that. I think she came back a game or 2 before, but because I know that her pace down that left is just something that we would never be able to deal with, because we've not had a right back all season. We've just been playing up players out of position, but. So I was fearing the worst when, before the game, but I was pleasantly surprised with the first half. I thought we played really well, but it summed up our whole season, really, that game at Man City. And but if you take those players out of any team, I mean, they're all top. I mean, Mary Fowler this season, I mean, that Arsenal Cup game away at Arsenal, I thought she was absolutely unstoppable. I mean, she was the difference between the 2 teams when Man City beat Arsenal, So. I just think, that I think that was in the League Cup. I just think that that Man City game sort of sums up our season. In spells, we've been really, really good, but at the end of the day, we let in too many goals, and we were never going to. And we were 10 points adrift at the bottom of the table. We weren't even close, It was 10 points in a season of 22 games is just not good enough.
I mean, but like you said, there was a moment where Aston Villa were just free falling, and it's like, wait, what is happening? What is happening? It got interesting for a little bit, and the final 5 games of the season, they kind of just took off. All right. Well, I guess I could ask this about the front office, but I want to ask about it now. What are your thoughts? Well, the next subject is squad, so it works perfectly anyway. But we'll delve deeper on them this last season. But looking forward to this year, like, what are your feelings about the club's chances in the WSL2?
Well, it's all changed this year. So we've got there's 3 potential promotion opportunities because they're increasing the WSL to 14 teams. So this season, the top
That is
2 will
true.
get promoted, and then the third place team will play off to get promoted against the bottom team in the WSL. So if you finish in the top 3 out of 12, the top quarter out, in that league, which Palace really should be good enough to do, you've got a chance of promotion. You don't want to finish third because if you're playing the bottom team in the WSL, as I say, the difference is quite big. And I think whoever finishes bottom in the WSL is still going to be probably too strong for the team that finishes third in the WSL too.
Yeah.
So I think we need to finish in the top 2. I think we can do it, but it just depends if the club want to go for it or not. They'll never get a better opportunity because this is an opportunity where you've got more teams being promoted than ever before, and so I just find it difficult I find it really difficult with Palace, to understand if they didn't really go for it. And so what we need to do, we've lost some players already this season, which is not surprising. Some of them have internationals. Obviously, I assume they would have had a clause in their contract that allowed them to leave had we got relegated. So Katrina By, Millie Gale, Rhea Olding, they've all left. Annabelle Blanchard has left as well. Fliss Gibbons has retired. So we've lost some players this season, but we've still got a really strong core of players there that should be good enough to finish in the top 2 easily. My worry is that some of those will leave because Alison Swaby plays for Jamaica. We signed her from AC Milan in January. She's a fantastic defender. She did strengthen us. It's such a shame that our other central defender, Amy Everett, got injured just at the time Alison came in. They never really played together, and it's such a shame because I think those two would have complemented each other well. So if we can keep Alison Swaby at the back, she was a plus. If we can keep Katie Stengel, please, come on, we've got to keep Katie Stengel. She's just technically a fantastic player, and if we can get Katie and Elise Hughes, as I say, the top goal scorer from the season before, together. In that division, they should score a lot of goals. But our player of the year last year was Ashley Weirden. We signed from Ajax, a fantastic player. Really surprised, actually, she's not in the Netherlands squad for the Euros. She had such a good season. She won our player of the season from the supporters and the players' player. So she won both player of the season awards. She's been an incredible. She's so fast and so direct, got a great shot, scores goals, creates goals. If we can keep Ashley Weirden and Katie Stengel, I think we've got a really good chance. I think we'll score a lot of goals. But we do need to we've only got, I think, out of the squad that's left, we've only got 4 defenders. We need to bring in at least another 4 defenders to give ourselves cover, maybe even 5. I think up front, we've got some really, really good quality. I think what we need is more midfielders and more defenders for next season. So I think the squad for last season was let down because they didn't have the experience and help they needed. I think everyone gave everything. I thought, credit to the team because they could have just given up after those first 2 games after conceding 11 goals and not scoring. But they really gave it a go, and in most games we were in the game. Usually in the second half, like the Man City game, for example, we fell apart because we just didn't have we made substitutions and it really weakened us because we didn't have the quality coming off the bench that we needed. But I think in the WSL too, it's going to be tough because the teams in there that are going to be really going for it, such as Birmingham and Charlton, Southampton even. I think it's going to be really difficult. But I think we should be able to finish in the top 2 as long as we keep our top players and bring in some quality at the back and in midfield. So, I mean, the squad going, it's too early to say who's going to still be there. That's the problem. But if we can keep that squad together, I mean, the players that we've lost, I don't think Miller Gale's probably the only one really, and Annabelle Blanchard and Miller Gale are the 2 that really would have been starters probably, almost certainly in WSL 2. I don't think Rhea Olding or Rhea Olding's actually going to be playing for Finland in the Euros. She never really played very much for us. I think she joined us when she must have been injured, came off the bench a few times, but really didn't have many games. And then Kat Vi, I thought, was very in and out, very inconsistent. Got caught out of position a lot at the back. Also, she's got great experience having played for Everton and 160 odd games for Denmark. But I don't. I think that I don't think we'll miss her as much as some of the others. But I do think that I do think we need to strengthen at the back and in midfield because we're really light in numbers there. But up front, we've got some really real quality. We have Ashley Weirden, Katie Stengel, Elise Hughes, Molly Sharp, and we've also got Clarissa Larissy, who's a Canadian international, as a forward as well. I think we've got real pace and goal scoring players who can score goals up front, but it's just the rest. It's just at the back and in midfield we need to strengthen really. But I think we've got a chance going forward. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. When you first talked about the expansion, and I was like, wait, that's not until until the next season. I had like a real dumb moment for a second. I was like, right. That would, yeah.
It is actually going to happen the season after, isn't it?
Yeah, the season
obviously,
after. You just started now. Yeah,
it's next season that actually the teams will go up. So
I was like, no, that's 2 seasons. Oh, so you would do it now. So
yeah.
Oh man, I'm excited about the relegation match. It's also with the expansion and the new way that they're doing it, it makes more sense to kind of name them WSL, WSL2. And I think it's going to, I didn't really pay too much to the lower leagues. Unfortunately, that's a weakness of mine, but because of this what they're about to do, the changes, I'll very much be paying attention to it. And like I watched London City versus Birmingham. I watched that game, and that game was very entertaining, and I felt the high stakes of the situation. And being able to put that in the same span where it's like WSL versus WSL2, like just that in itself sounds really fun. I'm locked in, all the drama that can come from the match. I think this was a really good decision by them.
Yeah, I agree. I like playoffs. I think having a playoff, and after this next season, of course, when there's going to be the third place team against the bottom team, beyond that, it's going to be the second from bottom team against the second from top team. So the top team goes up, the bottom team goes down, and then the other two play off in the future. For either the team to stay in the WSL, if they finish 13th, it will be, because there'll be 14 teams. If you finish 13th, you'll play the second team in the WSL2. And I think, because sometimes it's really close, sometimes you might get one team that just walks away with the league and might be 10 points clear. But usually second, third, fourth, fifth, it's quite tight. So going into those last few games where if you finish second, you might get a playoff for promotion, it's going to have so much more interest in all those other games. So I'm with you on that. I think playoffs are really good.
Yeah, perfect. We'll continue to the squad. You basically gave a good overlook. Well, I'm not using the correct word anyway. I for the most part understand the problems of the squad when you're explaining why the first manager, why Laura struggled, but we can go in as in depth or however in depth you want to with this grading and your thoughts on the squad last season.
I think if we're going to talk about a squad that needs to compete in the WSL, I think it was probably, the facts are in front of us. 10 points adrift at the bottom, conceding 20 goals more than anyone else. It's got to be an E, isn't it, really, for the squad from last season. But in saying that, that's not the players' fault, because the players needed some help and they didn't get it. So when I talk about the back staff and everything else, that is where the blame lies, because they didn't prepare that club for the WSL in the right way. It's a shambles, really. And so I would say the squad for last season on a WSL level was an E. on an A to F, it was an E. But for effort and for never giving up and for giving us everything, the squad was a B, because the players can't be blamed for the situation they were left in. They didn't get the support they needed. They were left out to dry, and to be honest, they never gave up. Their heads never dropped. And so I would give the players a B, but the squad quality, based on what the club didn't do, is an E.
That's fair.
I can't criticise the players because they gave us everything.
Well, and I like both facets. That's a solid supporter where you're just like, hey, they were only given what they were given. Yeah, so it's oh, I like the comments. Hey, Mark, I understand I'm not Mike. I technically, if you can see, I am a City fan, but we love on our network. We have multiple. We have a WSL podcast. We like talking about just the world of football. We cover men's and women's football. So we have this wonderful person here. And yes, I am an Angel City fan. What I will say is this is my second year in being a Angel City fan. I just recently embraced the NWSL. I'm actually pretty behind when it comes to paying attention to women's football. I started when this podcast started, which was 3.5 years ago. So that's when I went all in on paying attention to City women. And like, I love conversations like this because it really helps me like truly learn the ins and outs of clubs and the culture. And I am an open book. And I'm at the point where like I have a Green Bay Packers scarf up there, but football is like my number 1, 2, and 3 favorite sport. Like if there's and when we talk about American football, we actually say football, say it with a little like twang, a little accent, so people can know the difference between football and football. So, football. Yeah. So we have some fun over here. We have a YouTube channel. You can find our podcast. We talk a lot outside of the City sphere. We have like one weekly episode where we talk about Man City men and women, but a lot of our content is just football focused. We have journalists on, writers, all kinds of fun things. So truly appreciate you guys, Mark and Mongo Bongo, for joining us, which Mongo Bongo, such a fun thing to say, okay, I mean, we'll keep it going to the supporters. What I will say is it looks like 4 out of your 5 wins were at home. So that says something about the comfortability of the squad being at home, that you said the fan base, they show up and they show out. And I do remember in the last game, obviously it was home, but the Crystal Palace sect that was there, I could hear them cheering on the squad, doing their part to try to uplift. And that's always good. The vibes in women's football tends to always be better. But I am interested, as a team that got relegated and the fan bases have to travel and then go to the home games and do your best to try to hope to see a victory when it probably isn't going to happen. I would assume you give them a high grade just because you're there experiencing that and you're still showing up. What are your thoughts on how the supporters did this season, and what grade would you give them?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I was there for both of the games, and was amongst those supporters. The one thing I'd say about our support is that I do, and I'm not just saying this because I'm part of it, but I do think maybe Everton, I was really impressed away at Everton. I thought their support was really loud. But other than Everton, I think our support has probably been the loudest, especially because this season we had a drum and behind the goal, and it was noisy, and we never stopped singing for nearly every game. And it was really impressive. We also have 23, I think it is now, 23 flags that we take everywhere. So we've got a lot of flags, very colourful. Takes us ages to put them up. Some grounds don't let us take them all in, which is a real shame, and it's a real problem for the WSL because our flags are very inclusive. We've got we've got the rainbow flag, and we've got just generally like supportive flags. They're not flags that are offensive any way. But most of the grounds have got space for them. They're not grounds aren't being sold out when we go away.
Yeah.
So it's a real shame that we've had issues getting the flags in the ground, and that's been probably the biggest low point of the WSL, apart from obviously finishing bottom. I think we try to be quite supportive of the women's game in general, and very inclusive fan base. We've got a very inclusive fan base. All different types of people support Palace, different backgrounds, and we want to encourage that more. And by being visual and showing that this is us, we're very inclusive, helps bring those people in as well. So I've got I suppose my biggest gripe for the season, apart from obviously finishing bottom, which we've talked about, is really some of the away grounds we've been to have been really difficult about our flags. And all we're trying to do is make women's football more appealing, more open and accessible and colourful and all those things, and we're being prevented from doing it. And to me, that's a real problem. And unless it's addressed and unless it's sorted out, it will drive people away. We've already talked about not taking any of our flags away next season because it's such a nightmare trying to get them in the grounds. When you've got a heavy bag of 23 flags, it's a problem when they say you can't bring them in. And you think, I just brought them halfway up the country, and you're telling me, and it is really, really, it's really sad. So I would say that our support has been very noisy, very colourful, with all our flags. 23 flags. It looks amazing behind the goal. It just looks visually fantastic. But we've been prevented from doing it, and that to me is a real problem, not just for us, but for the whole game, because all we're trying to do is make the game more appealing and let it grow, help it grow for other people as well. So these clubs that are stopping us doing it are actually not helping themselves at the end of the day. We're trying to support women's football in general, not just us. Yeah. So that's a real problem. But I would say our support has been fantastic. The only thing I would say, I'll give our support a B, because even though we've had some really bad results, we never ever stop singing. We could be 4-0 down, and we will still be singing. And that's often happened throughout the season because we have been 4-0 down a few times, but we never stop supporting the team, and we are very loud. And the reason I wouldn't give us an A is because our numbers are not good enough. I don't think that's necessarily our fault because of course we're there, but I think the club could have done a lot more to encourage more people to come to games. They could have done more to advertise season tickets better. For example, when the men's season tickets go on sale, they could have a tick box. Would you like a women's one for half price alongside your men's one? I've been saying that to the club for 3 years, and yet again this summer, the men's tickets went out with no box next to it for the women's. That to me, you've got 18,000 men's season ticket holders that even if 1% of those, decide to decide, that's another 180 tickets that you've got, season tickets for the women. So to not do that, I just find it's frustrating, because I really do think they don't help themselves. They don't advertise game. That when we play at Sellers, the main stadium, we only played twice there. Man City and Chelsea were the only games we played there. When we play there, they advertise the hell out of it. We get big crowds. When we play at our normal ground, which is at Sutton, non-league ground, Sutton United, which is a lovely little ground. It's 5,000 capacity, perfect for us because it can look busy even though there might only be 1,000 people there because it's not a 30,000 seat stadium. So Sutton's perfect for us. They don't advertise those games nearly as much as they do the ones at Sellers Park. So we get big crowds for the game. Chelsea and Man City are big games anyways, and we would have probably got decent attendances. But what they don't do is when we're at home to West Ham, when we're at home to Leicester, they don't advertise it enough. They don't entice people. They don't give them benefits. Buy one ticket, get one free. Be a kid for free if you're an adult player. There's lots of things they can do. I just don't think they do enough. So the numbers mean that we don't get an A, but I do think our support was incredible last season. Noise and visually, it was fantastic. It's definitely a B. If we had twice as many people that we've been getting, and we fill that end behind the goal especially, it would have definitely been an A. But I can't give us an A because the numbers are too low. You know, our average attendance was something really silly, like I think it was just 1,000 or something. I think our lowest attendance, which was against Everton, was 500. I mean, to get 500 people for a WSL game is disgraceful to me. And that was our lowest attendance. Fair enough. But at that time, we were actually doing okay as well. You know, we weren't losing every week. We picked up a few good results when we played Everton. And so we really should have been getting bigger crowds. But I don't think the club helped themselves. They don't advertise it. Their comms have been pretty awful most of the season. They make mistakes on kick-off times. And, you know, every time they make a mistake, I always say that wouldn't happen with the men's team, you know. And it's true. When the men's team information goes out, it's perfect. No mistakes. When the women's information, the date's wrong, the day's wrong, the time's wrong. There's so many mistakes. And people, you know, it just almost shows that the club don't care as much about the women's team as the men's. They don't take the care when they're putting out their communication. So I think, you know, the support has been brilliant. I don't think the club have helped with the numbers, but it's definitely a B for the people that go. I mean, it's been incredible support. Really loud, really visual, with all the flags. It looks amazing. Let's hope it continues next season because we need to get behind the team for next season now.
Yes, yeah. I feel very similar about, like, they can sell out the Joy Stadium. Like, that's not really a problem. I feel like 3 seasons, it might be 3 seasons now, where they won every game at home and they basically were selling out all of them. It's 3,000, so that it's smaller than your stadium. But a lot of the times this year, the games were like 2-hour difference between the men and the women. On the same day, like the women would play at like 1 and then the men have to play at 3 or something like that, like something maybe 2:12. And I was about to say my time, which is early in the morning. So like the women would play at 6 a.m. and then the men would play at like 8 or 10 or something like that. And it was just always so frustrating because if you're now forcing your own fan base to choose and pick which are they going to go to, and we know who and what people are going to choose unless like the game is big enough, or now they're making families choose, all right, now you go and travel to this place and I'll go travel to this place. Who has all of this like extra income to be doing all of these things? I wish they could figure that out, and especially because the stadiums are like right next to each other, but you really wouldn't know because they have all these signs that point to the Etihad, all these things that point to the Etihad, but nothing that goes, hey, Joy Stadium's right over there though. And I was in England in April, it might have been May, I don't remember, but I was in there for a week and I went to a men's and a women's match, and I remember going to the Joy Stadium and being like, oh, it's right here. Oh yeah, like I traveled. It's next door.
It's next door.
It's literally right there. I was just here a couple days ago, and I did not know that it was right there because all of the focus and attention, and you know, understandably so. But we have such an amazing women's team. Like we have the model UN of like national team players. Like we have. There's so much quality on the squad for them to not get the attention and the love that they earn and they deserve. Like Bunny Shaw winning the Golden Boot, well, having to share the Golden Boot when she missed a third of the season, and Lauren Hemp, top of the assists with missing a bunch of the season. It just, I don't understand why they're not being pushed. Like the fan base is amazing. The fan base does such a great job at, you know, doing the job to prop the ladies. Manchester City, with a club that has all the money, I mean, there really is no excuse. It's very frustrating. So I mean, I understand obviously that there's different levels to it, but I completely understand your frustration on not properly marketing the women's side.
Yeah, and your point is a really good point about the games that clash with them between the men and the women. because next season for Palace, for example, we've qualified, we won the FA Cup, the men, so we're in the Europa League next season, which means that we have 8 games on a Thursday in the Europa League, which means all the Saturday games will be pushed back to Sunday. So we'll have at least 8 matches. These are not even including the ones that move for TV coverage, but 8 games will have to be moved because of the Thursday night Europa Cup games. So that means 8 games will be on a Sunday when the women are playing on a Sunday, which basically means that, as you say, people have to choose, and it really does affect our attendances when we do have games at the same time. But for example, even the time when we won the league at Lewes, the men's team was at home to West Ham at exactly the same time. And what that meant was that a lot of people, I mean, I went to watch the women, obviously, because that's always my preference, but a lot of people went to watch the men against West Ham, missed us basically winning promotion. No one should be in a position where you've got to choose. If you want to grow the women's game, make it really easy for people to attend games. Don't put obstacles in their way. And next season, we've got people talking to the club, and we've done it before. We said, can we move games that are on where the men's game moves to a Sunday? Can we have the women's game on the Saturday? And the answer's always been, well, it's difficult for us to. We've got to get agreement from the football authorities. We've got to get agreement from the opposition. We've got to then rearrange the referees. We've then got to do this and do that. And I'm thinking,
No.
Don't make excuses. You know what you've got to do. You just listed it all. Just go and do it. Right. And we're going to have a bigger problem next season. It's going to be horrendous because we're going to have games where a lot of people, the men are at home to Man United, for example, on a Sunday, and the women are at home to, I don't know, Birmingham. Massive game because Birmingham will be up there hopefully with us. And we could lose a lot of support, which will not help us get promoted. It will hinder our chance of promotion, where we're not getting the support there because they're watching the men. So I'm hoping the club do something. They've got lots of time before the fixtures don't come out for the WSL 1 and 2 until the 28th of July. So they should be banging on the door of the football authorities saying, when those fixtures come out, can we make sure that where there's a Europa League game on the Thursday, that Palace play on a Saturday or a Friday night or whatever it has to be, but not on the day that the men play. I'm not holding my breath, to be honest. I'm not. But that's what really needs to happen. So your point is absolutely one that we've been talking about for a long time amongst ourselves.
Yeah. And sure, you might not be able to move all 8, but move 2, move 3, because then you can at least test the theory. See, do you get more people in? And then, well, then if more people come in, now that makes it worth your time to do these things. And maybe you'll be you'll put more concerted effort. But like you said, we have to do this and this and this. Well, yeah, you know what to do. So you are being paid as a top person to do your job. So do your job. I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas out there.
Absolutely agree with you. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the last category is front office. I can only imagine what you're going to grade them and your thoughts on their job this year.
Well, I'm not going to give them an F because I think that is too harsh, because I think there are some people there that do care. But it's an E. It's definitely an E. It's been really poor. I don't blame necessarily all the people involved because I don't think they've been given the chance to do what they need to do, especially in signing players. I don't think the budget was there that we needed. As I say, even when we got promoted, it was 0.3%. £700,000 was put in on top of the money the club automatically generated from advertising and season tickets and everything else. The additional amount was 700,000, not even a million, out of 190 million. It came out at 0.3% of the total income of the club, but they actually put 700,000 of that 190 million into the win. It's a miracle that we got promoted on that money, but we did. But then what we needed to do is really just go for it and make sure we stayed up. But again, we try to do it on the cheap, and you cannot be in the WSL on the cheap. The gap's too big. You've got to get the players in that know the league and have got the experience. So I think it comes from the top. I don't think the investment was there. I don't think they've really, like I said about the communications, the mistakes that always come out. If they really wanted to make the women's team, absolutely perfect in every way, it would be perfect, and you wouldn't have those mistakes. You wouldn't have the communications going out that are incorrect all the time. And I'm talking about there was a point in time where it's every week it was a mistake. They did something, they said something that wasn't actually right, and I'm thinking, who's checking this? Who's actually taking the care here? It's almost like it was an afterthought, the women's team, we need to put something out, let's just do that. And then no one checked it. They just rushed it out because they're probably too busy doing stuff for the men's team. Well, I'm sorry, get a team for doing the women's work, get a designated team there, pay them to do a job, and don't just keep trying to do everything on the cheap. And I'm afraid that's what that's what it looks like from the outside. It looks like they're doing it on the cheap, and you get found out. You get found out because the quality's there around the comms, not there, and the quality's not there around the squad because you're trying to do it on the cheap, and they need to invest in it. It's a really important, if you look at the teams that get into Europe, Lyon and Wolfsburg and Barcelona obviously and all the others, and Arsenal obviously won the Champions League this year. All those teams, it isn't actually a massive investment to get a team into Europe. When you compare it to the men's team, for Palace to get into Europe and be in the Champions League for the men is going to cost millions and hundreds of millions to get a team to compete at that very top end. In the women's team, Chelsea 2 years ago, Chelsea won their third WSL in a row on a budget, a salary club budget of £5 million. Now, £5 million, one men's player gets paid that a year.
Yeah.
And this is a whole team that won the league in the women's game on £5 million. That was their salary budget, £5 million. It doesn't actually take comparatively much money, when you compare it to the men's team, to get a squad that can actually compete. We obviously didn't do anything like that because we were 10 points adrift of everyone. We lost 7-1 and 5-2 to West Ham. Us and West Ham are the two favourites to get relegated, and they scored 11 goals against us, and they were one of the teams near the bottom. So it just goes to show, if you don't invest and go for it, you're not going to succeed, and it goes throughout the club. So for me, it's an E. The front of office is just dreadful. They need to sort it out. They need to get people in there that know their job and know what to do and are given the time to do it, rather than someone from the men's team, the comms for the men's team, picking up, can you put this out for the women? They don't know anything about the women's team. They don't even know the names of the players, and they're expected to put something out. And that's where all the mistakes occur. You need a designated women's comms team dealing with the women's team, but they do it all on the cheap. And getting the men's comms team to put stuff out about the women's is just asking for trouble, because that's where all the mistakes come out, It's just dreadful, and there's so many over the season. I mean, if I could list them all, I reckon there'd be at least 20 mistakes on the comms. And there's information about an away game. There's information about an away game kickoff time that was wrong until 2 days before the game. People were booking trains and things based on a time that was wrong because the club hadn't got it sorted. It was ridiculous, It's just a shambles, and so it's definitely an E for me in respect of front of office. That's and obviously not moving games that we've asked to be moved because of clashes. I think the club could have done a lot more. Even if they can't do it, tell us that they're trying. The communication's so poor that we don't know what's going on, so we just don't think they're doing anything. If they are trying and they've asked the FA and the FA have said, I'm really sorry, we can't do that for this reason, the ground's not available because Sutton are playing, men's are playing, and you can't play on that day because of that. Or, if there's reasons, we'll accept it. But what we get is nothing. So we are thinking, they're not even trying to move that game so that people can go and watch the men and the women, at the same time. It's just awful. I mean, at least tell us what's going on. And another thing is, things like press conferences before games. It is a waste of time. We have got players injured and there's no information. So what comes out is the manager will say, we've had a good week at training this week, last week was a shame that we lost, but we showed some good signs that we're moving in the right direction. It's just rubbish. It doesn't tell you anything. What we want information, and we don't get it from the club at all. We don't get it. We don't get any information. There were pre-season friendlies last year that we didn't even know who was playing or what the result was. It was all kept behind closed doors. Things like that. If you've got people that really support you and want to know, wouldn't you want to keep them involved and push out the information, keep their interest up? At Palace, it's like the opposite. They don't want to tell you anything, and it just pushes you down in the end. So anyway, that's my whinge about front of office. I think it's appalling. I think they really need to sort that out because it's not good enough.
Well, and it's also a combination of things. When you're not winning, and then it's also because the team's not being supported financially, and then the communication is lacking. It's like a combo of things where it's just like this unhappy stew that is just boiling all season and cooks down. And I completely understand. And luckily, you got Textor out of here, and I know that his whole thing was, well, if I can't make decisions, then I'm not going to financially really help the squad out, which also then affects the women's team as well. Woody Johnson, he has more money, but how supportive will he be? We will have to see that, because there's a lot of chaos in the NFL team that he owns. Yes. Like a lot of behind the scenes chaos and drama, and so and like you said, with the money aspect of the women's compared to the men, they all have to do is take 0.3% of Mark Gahey's transfer money. Obviously, I'm not trying to send him away, but when he a player like that, a big money transfer who goes away, all you got to do is take a small smidge of that, push that towards the women's side, and when it comes to PSR, a lot of the money that's spent on the women's team is forgiven anyway. So it doesn't really affect them PSR wise. Or you could easily spend a third of a mid player on the men's team season salary and do a huge upgrade to your women's side. And that is a big complaint that I have just with women's football all over, because we're seeing it now with Aston Villa. For the men's team to get out of PSR, they're about to sell the women's team. How is that okay? Why is that legal? It's so frustrating that women's football is there are certain people who treat it as an afterthought, but then you have Michelle King buying in, and you can see that she has the vision. She understands that money can grow. It can be big. It can explode. And I mean, we're seeing it with the NWSL right now. There's a lot of money that's coming into this league. They've done a lot of steps marketing wise, and also just fan base. We can only take something as seriously as they take themselves. So we need to see more coming from the WSL. We need to see more coming from the teams, and we will see the progress, but people just have to be very patient, and we'll see.
And that point about, a percentage of Mark Gahey's fee or whatever, during last season, we had a player called Jake O'Brien who we sold to Lyon. I think it was only for £1 million. But part of that deal was that we got a 20% sell-on if he moved to another club. He then went to Everton for 20 million. So we would have got 20% of the difference, 19 million. Now, that was money that we weren't expecting. It wasn't budgeted for. It wasn't expected. It was additional money because we didn't know Lyon were going to sell him, and we didn't know he was going to be worth 20 million. So to get, to get 20% of 19 million, it's an extra 3 million quid coming in that we didn't expect. Even if they put half of that into the women's team to build that squad up, that would have made a big difference. But again, it's all about trying to do it on the cheap, and they just need to, as I say, you can actually get a really competitive squad together for not a lot of money in comparison to men's football. For the cost of a salary of one player in the men's game, Mark Gahey, for example, say he's on 5 million a year. For that money, for one player, you could put a pretty good squad together. Because women's players generally in the WSL, obviously you get the top players on much more, and they get loads of more money from advertising, wearing boots and stuff. But generally, you're looking at between maybe 60, maybe even 50,000 to 120,000 a year. That is what their salary is. Unless you're a very top player, like Bunny Shaw's going to be on a lot more. She's probably on 750,000 a year or something. But you're looking at generally, the money that players in the men's game get in a week is the annual salary of a women's player. Yeah. So you can put a 25-person squad together in women's football relatively cheaply compared to the men's game. And the rewards for that are, so many actually, because you get the good feeling, the good feel factor for the club. It's free advertising in a way, cheap advertising. You've got a team that's qualified for Europe in the women's game. Your name's out there as being an elite team. It's part of the overall aura of the club, and also community-wise, you want to be able to support your women's team, because a lot of people who go and watch the men are women, and it brings everyone together, and I think for the benefits of putting in that extra money, it's almost free advertising or cheap advertising for the club, because of all the benefits you get from it if it's successful. But when you go up and you don't do it and you get relegated straight away, what you get is really bad. You just get it's just a bad look. Any future women's player who wants to play for a top club, even if they're a Palace fan, might play for Palace, but they've got this message now that we don't invest in our women's football, so they don't sign for Arsenal. We can have a player in our academy who will look at Palace and think, well, they don't care about their women's team. They didn't do anything. They just got relegated on 10. And they could be a really top player that want to play for Palace, but they're going to think, I'm not convinced. I'm going to go and sign for Arsenal instead. And that's the problem, because it's all about what message it gives off, and it's a really poor message. And we are big on community, big on saying we're one club. No, we're not one club at all. There's absolutely no evidence that they treat the men and women. They train. The women train at the academy training grounds, a lovely facility. The men are over the road in the men's training ground. So they've got very good training facilities. But apart from that, there's nothing to bring us as one club. It's, and this message that they say, one club, one club. When we got promoted, there's all photos with, holding the cup up, we're one club. Wasn't even mentioned when we got relegated. I went to the Player of the Year awards at the ground after we won the FA Cup. They had a presentation, and never even mentioned the women's team. Every single awards night that I've been to in the last 5 years, I've also included the women's team and the under-21s as part of their awards. They just ignored them. Didn't even mention them. It's like they didn't exist. Because they got relegated. If they'd won promotion this year, they'd all be on the stage and they'd be saying, "Oh yeah, we're great." But it's almost like they're too embarrassed to mention the fact they got relegated, because they probably know they caused it. The club caused it by inaction and in a lack of investment. It's a real shame, and it gives a really bad message. So yeah, not good.
Which not pushing it is also, it's just like a circle, because that still in itself is like not supporting it and not pushing it and marketing it. Like, yes, being relegated is bad, but also it can be spun as, hey, now we really need you guys' support, etc., etc., etc. Well, Phil, this was truly a pleasure. And so I'm actually I have to end this, and then Man City, they play in the Club World Cup in a half hour. But they're doing like a watch along, a Man City official watch along, and I'm gonna be on the fan wall for that. So I'm gonna move all my stuff to the living room and just get back on.
Good luck in that game in the Club World Cup as well. Yeah. We obviously played Man City, the men's team, in the cup final, and
Oh,
their supporters were fantastic, and it meant so much to us. It wouldn't have meant as Man City win so much for us. It was our first ever win anything in our history of a major tournament trophy, and the Man City fans were really quite remarkable afterwards. We had no problems, and they took it really well. So, good luck in the Club World Cup as well.
thank you. I appreciate that. For our viewers and listeners, please let people know where they can find you and the things that you do.
Yeah, of course, and so every week during the season, myself and my friend Mike Kewell, we do an Eagle Eye View podcast on the Palace women. So that's usually on a Thursday night, not always, but usually on a Thursday night during the season. So Eagle Eye View on Twitter, you'll be able to find the details. Thank you.
Perfect. All right, everybody. We will see you all very soon. But until then, you know the vibes. Shady gang, shady gang, shady gang.